Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking... Hi princess! Are you sitting on my knee? Okay then. Everybody, this is Princess. I'm pretty sure you've met before. And yeah, she's very needy today, so apparently she wants to be in my video. I'm not going to argue with her. We are going to look into the strange circumstances surrounding the death of Tamla Horsford. It's a strange one. It's actually been ruled as accidental. However, personally, I do believe there's more to it. I mean, obviously it's up to you guys on your opinions on it. I know what mine is. And you'll form it hopefully by the end of this video. This case was suggested by Brittany. So thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have. And of course, if you have any more, please just let me know. Tamla Ayana Horsford was born in 1978 in the Caribbean, and from a young age, in 1989, she was 11, her family actually moved to Roxanne and then would later move to Florida, and this is where she would go on to meet her husband, who was called Leander Tamil. He often went by the nickname Lee, and Tamla often went by the name either Tammy or pretty much, more often I would have thought, Tam. So that is probably how I'm going to refer to them both during this video. Lee actually had a daughter from another relationship with someone who he was with before, but when Tam first came into their lives, she was very young, and so she took her on as her own daughter, and they were just very close as a result of that. They had a fantastic relationship together, and then their family only expands. The loving couple go on to have 5 sons together, which is a lot. And all boys as well, like wow. She was one of the best mums ever. Obviously you always say that about your mum, but she just loved the kids so much. Absolutely adored them, did anything for them, was always there for them, no matter what. She was very involved in their lives, like took them to sports. She was would do that quite a lot. And that is where she would meet some of the people in the story when one of her sons was going to this sport club. I believe it was, I don't know if it was a football team or something like that, I'm not entirely sure. But she was there sort of supporting her son, and obviously got talking to some of the mothers there. Not just being a sort of amazing mum and wife, you know, she was also a very lively, energetic woman. She was very selfless, would basically do anything for anyone, but was also very funny, witty, and just very outgoing. Like, a lot of people said that she was the life of the party kind of thing. And because she was so like loving and kind and just really open-hearted, she would let, like, no matter who she met, she would kind of welcome them into her circle, if you understand what I mean. Not only did she have obviously all of her children that was getting older, the daughter that I mentioned who she raised as well was also expecting a child herself, which would have been Tam and Lee's first grandchild, so they were super excited for that. I believe that this child was going to be born in 2018, and you know, she was a wonderful mother, she would have been a wonderful grandma, you know, it was just something she was always ready for. At the time they were living in Forsyth County in Georgia, and I just want to put in a quick note here that apparently at the time, obviously I have no knowledge of this, it's just what I've seen and what I have looked up and read in my research for this case, but apparently it was known as quite a racist area, and a lot of people think that that isn't important, but a lot of people do think it's important, so that is why I put it in. And one day she gets an invite from one of the mums that I told you about that she met at like football practice, soccer practice, whatever it was, and she gets this invite for like this slumber party. And I know that sounds kind of weird because slumber parties are normally for children, but basically it was like it was bringing them back to the childhood. They were going to do this pajama party where they could all stay over at the house because they wanted to drink. So they could get absolutely plastered if they wanted to, and they would all be safe and sound in the house because everyone was supposed to be staying over kind of thing. You know, pull your jammers out, get comfy, and just have a blast kind of. That's what, you know, the plan was. And she was really excited about getting this invite. I believe, like, she was kind of a bit reluctant to go in the sense of She was happy that she got the invite, but then wasn't really bothered about going, according to Lee, her husband. And then he said that she didn't really want to let anybody down, and so that is why she ended up going eventually. But as I've always said, she was the life of the party, and this is what the women at that house said also, because as soon as she went in that house, you know, they could tell straight away that she was a massive, big personality. So the woman hosting this party was called Jeanne. She'd actually been to her house once before, I do believe. They didn't know each other super well, but, you know, well enough to get this invite, I guess. This party was going to be held on the 3rd of November in 2018. It would actually be sort of set up by one of Jeanne's friends, who was called Stacey Smith, and she was arranging everything. She invited 8 women in total. Well, 8 women on top of their 2, so that meant 10 total, sorry. And the other people going to the party were Madeline, Nicole, Marcy, Bridget, Jennifer, Sarah, Paula, and Tam. Now, just a quick little note here. Tam was the only black woman at that party. And she didn't actually know everyone either. She knew a couple of people. It was like that for most of them though, you know, not probably apart from the people hosting, you know, they would have known everyone. But she only knew a couple of people and didn't know the rest, and then some of the other women only knew a few people there and didn't know the rest as well. It wasn't just Tam that didn't know everyone. And in sort of girls' night sleepover tradition, it was kind of originally supposed to be a no boys allowed kind of party. And obviously Jeanne, she had a partner who was a male, and because Jeanne had a partner called Jose, and Stacey's husband, Tom Smith, also ended up there later on that night at some point. Originally they were supposed to they were going to go and stay down in the basement and hang out together. It would have been out of the way, it wouldn't have been with the girls at all, because this big football match was on. And Jeanne actually had this big theatre room down in the basement, so that's what they were going to do. They were going to go down there and watch the game together. And the girls were also going to watch the game together upstairs, because apparently, you know, they were big fans of this game that was going on. It was an important one. It was LSU versus Alabama, I believe. And Jeanne was a big LSU fan. Not only that, Jeanne's kids were away with their father, so she had the entire house to herself. It was perfect. You know, her friends could come over, watch the game together, get drunk, have a good time, and then stay in like all the rooms that she had of the kids and things, and everyone could just sleep over. At approximately 7:30 that night, everyone was there pretty much. And it was said that when Tam walked through the door, she, you know, kicked off her boots straight away and basically said that she was ready to get in her pyjamas. She put her pyjamas on, which she was actually wearing this white onesie with sort of paw prints all down it and these red and black socks. So they're doing the icebreakers, they're getting to know people. I believe she'd met Bridget once before, so she was kind of reintroducing herself to Bridget, introducing herself to, you know, the other girls that she hadn't met before. And they were just having a nice time and watching the game. By all accounts, everything was really good. Everyone was having a laugh, having a drink. Now, Tamla actually brought Jeanne a bottle of tequila as like normally you bring beer down round, don't you? So she brought this tequila around for Jeanne, and Jeanne was like, it was a top-notch quality tequila, apparently straight from Mexico. But she was like, I don't drink tequila, and then apparently nobody drank tequila either there, so Tam actually ended up drinking the bottle herself. Not all of it, obviously, but she was the one that was drinking it because nobody else would touch it. It was really felt like Jeanne just didn't appreciate the gift at all. I mean, even if you didn't drink the stuff, you'd be really appreciative of it, and even just fake it, like pretend like, oh my god, thank you so much, and then put it on the side. You don't have to drink the stuff. But she came across as like, I don't know, just very ungrateful for it. And Tam wasn't to know that she didn't drink tequila unless she told her, which I doubt she would have brought tequila if she knew that. And out of the women, Tam was the only one that smoked as well. So she would go outside, she would have a fag, she would also smoke some green as well. And apparently other people did join her in the green smoking. We'll get more into that a bit later on. Now, one of the guests, Jennifer, got pretty drunk pretty much straight away. I believe out of everyone, if one was to guess who would have gotten drunk and liked the booze and maybe gone too far with it, that they would have picked Jennifer, you know, so it wasn't to be unexpected really. So she was very drunk straight away, and obviously that didn't really shock anyone because of that. Tam was in and out having fags all night and drinking her tequila, and it was said that Tam was able to handle her booze very well. Lee was adamant on how well she did. She would drink tequila all the time and she was fine with it, kind of thing. So Madeleine was Jean's aunt, and a girl called Stacy actually admitted to going out with Tam and smoking a bit of the green stuff, which apparently Jean was really not happy about, and they had to stop it because it got her like really upset. And one of the things that why she was really upset was because Jose was there and he was actually a probation officer, so obviously she didn't want anything like that sort of being made aware of to him. Madeleine had made gumbo for everyone. The boys stayed down all day until half time, and then they did actually come upstairs to eat with the girls and share in the gumbo, but then I believe they went back down again to watch the rest of the game. And you know, it just carries on like that. At one point, as they're drawing closer towards the end of the night, Tamla actually FaceTimes Lee to tell him good night, and she gets her kids on FaceTime. She tells them good night. She's actually showing them around to everyone, for everyone else to say goodnight to them as well. So she felt very comfortable there. Despite not really wanting to go in the first place, you know, she was in good spirits. She seemed to be enjoying herself. It might have been one of them situations where you just think, I can't be bothered. But then you go and you have a fantastic time. So Jen was taken to bed quite, well, not super early, but early-ish, because obviously she was very drunk. And then some of them started sort of drifting off into the bedrooms themselves because they were tired, they were drunk. This was nearing 1 o'clock in the morning at this point, about 1:45. And about half an hour, pretty much everyone's talking about going to bed. Tam is going on about how she wasn't impressed that she didn't have anyone to sort of stay with. So most of them were buddied off into pairs, and she wasn't. She was on her own, so she wasn't too happy about that. She was talking to Stacey about it. And then I don't understand this, but Stacey's like, and Tam get their phones and put them next to each other on the table and are like, well, at least our phones can sleep together. I don't know. But that's what they did. So off they go. Stacey then goes to bed with her husband. That left Tam and Bridget as the last ones up. And Bridget was still up because Bridget had actually decided that she wanted to go home. She didn't want to stay. She got anxiety and she just didn't want to stay. So I guess she was waiting for a ride to go home. Tam at one point thought that she wanted to go home too, but I believe like the girls kind of convinced her to not drive home herself, and because she actually drove her car there. A lot of women got lifts or taxis. Tam actually drove in, so her car was there waiting for her. So she wanted to go and take it and drive home, and they kind of convinced her not to do that because they were worried for her safety. Her husband Lee actually said that she would have been totally fine driving home. I know obviously you shouldn't, and I'm not condoning it in any way, and neither is he, but like he said, she could handle her alcohol, and he is confident that if she went home that day, she would have made it home with completely no issues. Jose at one point sees both of them in the kitchen when he goes down to the basement to get his charger, and then he goes back up to bed. So this is kind of the last times that Tamla was actually seen, and the house actually had a security system in it. So what it actually did was every time the front or back door opened, it sent a message to Jean's phone. Opened and closed. So every time someone went in and out or whatever, that message got sent through to her phone. It also was said that she had cameras set up around her house too for security, because one of her ex-husbands or boyfriends or something like that, you know, kept going in the house without her knowing, so she put them up for that reason. So they also had them there too. So these doors were clocking people leaving, and even Tam going outside for a fag kind of thing. Like she'd go out the front door or back door, whatever, go and have a cigarette. Maybe it takes a minute to smoke it or two, and then the doors clocked again as someone opening it and closing it again once they'd gone back in, kind of thing. So Bridget does get picked up by her husband Gary eventually, and Tam said to her that her plan was to just have one last fag and then go to bed herself. And that was that. Bridget left. The door recorded as opening and closing at 1:47 a.m, which is most likely when Bridget left the house. 2 minutes later, 1:49, the door was back open again and then shut 1 minute later at 1:50, which was probably Tam going outside to have her fag like she said she was going to and shutting the door behind her. A few hours later, the system ends up picking the front door opening and closing again. And that was at 4 a.m, around past 4 a.m. It's actually thought that this is when Marcy left, and she left really early because she had a new job that she'd only just started and this was day 2 of it, and she wanted to get home and get ready and showered and stuff for it. But then it was actually found out that, you know, her job didn't start till 10:30. So, I mean, it's very unnecessary to get up at like 4:30 a.m. when you don't even start work till 10:30, to me anyway. But I don't know. Paula leaves at 7:30 a.m. Between 8 and 8:30, Stacey and Tom wake up and they start to get ready to go home because obviously they have their children to look after, who apparently was being watched by the sister. And when Stacey was leaving, remember how she left her phone with Tam's, you know, on that desk next to each other? She goes to get that and she sees Tam's phone there and she thinks, well, good, she stayed, because like I said, Tam was considering leaving and going home, which she would have taken a phone if that was the case. So the fact that it was still there meant that she had decided to stay over after all and that she was safe, kind of thing. And then Stacey and Tom left. Then Madeline wakes up between 8 and 8:30, which is Jean's aunt. So she said that she was in bed for a bit, you know, just chilling, and then she decided that she was going to get up. She goes downstairs to make herself some coffee, walking past the window, and this is when she sees somebody outside laid down in the grass, not moving, and that somebody was wearing a white onesie with paw prints on it. It was Tam. She said that she couldn't remember her name because it was the first time that she met her, which is understandable, but she obviously knew who it was. And she wasn't moving, so she was really worried and upset, and the first thing that she decided that she was going to do was not make the coffee, but get down on her hands and knees and pray, which people have thought was very strange. Why is that the first thing you do? The first thing you do when somebody is unresponsive outside, you ring the authorities, which wasn't even done for a while, to be honest. And then obviously you go out and check on them. She didn't do that. She prayed, looked again, and then ends up going upstairs to try and wake up Jose and John, which is just strange. She said that when she got up there and knocked on the door, she heard running water, so figured that they may be in the shower, didn't want to go in and barge in. But then she decided to go back downstairs, check on Tam again, who was still laid in the garden, unresponsive, not moving, and then goes back upstairs, knocks on the door again. This time there's no running water, and she gets them up and tells them, you know, that Tam's in the garden. Well, she don't know her name, but that this one of the friends is outside in the garden, not moving. This is strange as well, because Tam and Jose said that they weren't in the shower and they'd hadn't been running water, so basically they were woken up by the knock on the door. They were in bed asleep before that, which is weird. So whether she didn't hear running water, she was mistaken, who actually knows? So they get up, get dressed, and then they end up calling 911, which was at 8:59 a.m. And the way that he had determined that she was deceased, or, you know, well, yeah, I think it was deceased, was touching her leg and she didn't move. He didn't try CPR, he didn't try taking a pulse. The only thing he touched apparently was her leg, and from that little nudge, he decided there and then that she was dead and couldn't be helped and couldn't be saved. The first responders was like asking him, like, is there any blood? One of the first things that they actually said was that they thought that she had fell off the balcony, and then they're asking, like, was there any blood, things like that. And he was like, well, she's literally face down in the grass. I can't see much blood and I don't want to turn her over, kind of thing. They didn't try any life-saving measures whatsoever. The responders arrive at 9:07, and all the chaos outside is what actually wakes Jen up, who was still up there, and this is the first time that she learned of Tam being outside and unresponsive. And this is another strange thing in the case here, because how the women who found her and saw Tam's body initially, like, described the way in which she was positioned. Okay, so they said that she was face down straight into the grass. It wasn't head to the right or left, you know, angled slightly. She was face first in the grass. Her arms and legs were flat by her sides with the palms pointing towards the sky. And it was very strange and very disturbing because they thought, like, if she had fallen, the first instinct for a person to do is to try and stop themselves, to try and save themselves. So you put your arm out. But this was as if she was like a plank and just, boom, face planted straight into the grass, which is strange because who falls like that? Especially from a balcony. Even if you are wasted or high, I'm sorry, but you don't fall like that. You just don't. So, this was that. But then the police report came when they took their findings and wrote down how Tamla's body was found. Well, her left arm was actually bent and extended outwards, as if, as she was falling, she'd tried to stop herself. Which is strange because the women swore, that was not how her body was, and they've literally got the image burned inside of their brains because of how disturbing and odd, just pure odd it was. And they were even thinking about the possibility that, you know, maybe somebody had moved her body, like either the police or somebody else, because she was definitely not like that when they found her, which is super strange. Somebody must have moved her, surely. So, straight away, like I said, they were saying that she fell off this balcony. The balcony was 14 feet high and like 10.5 inches or something like that off the ground. And she's just face planted off it with her arms and legs by her side. I don't know. I really don't know. There's just a lot of questions with regards to that, to be honest. Now, they were asked to get everybody that had been to that party all back to the house, which, you know, they did. They were all left in a room together, unsupervised, so that allowed them to just talk freely. I'm not saying that they conspired or got the story straight, but you never know. It left them the opportunity to do so, if that was the case, which I'm not saying it is. They went and told Lee about his wife, but they did that in a very rude manner as well, which is really heartbreaking because he literally lost the love of his life, the mother of all his children, the most amazing person in the world to him, and news like that is heartbreaking and is supposed to be delivered with the most care and respect that they can possibly give it. And he just wasn't. He goes to the door and he's like, "Are you Lee?" And he's like, "What is it? Basically, what's it about? You know, what's it matter to you?" And he went, "Are you Lee?" And there's like, "Tell me what it's about." And he's going, "Is your name Lee?" Basically, like, started to get angry. And Lee said, "Well, actually, my name isn't Lee, really. That's a nickname. And what does it matter? Why do you want to know?" And they just came out and said, "It's regarding your wife. She's deceased." And said it in just a blasé manner, like not a caring tone whatsoever. It must have just been awful to have the news like that, and obviously he couldn't believe it. He was thinking along the lines of maybe she had been in an accident or something like that, because she was at a friend's house having a sleepover party. How did this happen? And obviously it wasn't that. They were saying that she fell off the balcony, that she'd gone out to have a fag, smoke some green, and then fell off because she was very drunk, and, you know, potentially that mixed with the weed, who knows. So obviously they were telling him all that is what they believed happened, and he wasn't convinced by it whatsoever. He was going on about how she could drink like a full bottle of tequila and still dance around in these massive high heels, how she wouldn't trip over, she wasn't clumsy like that. He didn't believe it. And not only that, the police really shouldn't have been telling him that that's how she died when they didn't know yet. Like, anything could have happened to her. Somebody could have pushed her. Somebody could have killed her and made it look like she had fallen off the balcony. They'd had no idea, but straight away they were classing it as, she's fallen off that balcony, this is an accident. And that is where this is super frustrating as well, because that's how it was treated, that's how the evidence was handled. The evidence, well, they didn't think there was any, so they didn't do all of the normal testing and everything. So anyway, they send her off for autopsy, and what comes back from that is that she's got all of these little lacerations everywhere. She even had a laceration in her in the right ventricle of her heart. She had no fractures to any of the bones in her face, which, if you imagine she's face planted first, you know, there would have been something like that. There would have been some head trauma, surely, if she's fallen off that balcony. There was no damage to her shoulders, no damage to her back, no damage to her abdomen. It said that she didn't have damage to all of that, but she had severe damage to like her neck and her head and some of her torso. But there was just so many little lacerations all around her body as well. They did a tox report which came back to say that, you know, she was like 3 times above the driving limit. She also had Xanax in her system, which is strange, and THC, which they knew that she was smoking that, so that was expected. Now, the thing with the Xanax is Tam was not prescribed it. She was not taking it. There was somebody that was prescribed it at that party, and it was Bridget. And Bridget kept some in this, I don't know, necklace? I don't know why. Maybe an emergency supply. Maybe that's just how she carried them. I have no idea. But that's how she carried them, apparently. And she said that she didn't give any to Tam. She didn't give any to anyone. But then other people said that they had got some pills off her before. Some Xanax off her before. I don't know. I just don't know. Thing is, though, this Xanax hadn't sort of been broken down by her liver yet. So it meant that she literally just taken it not long before she died. Her official cause of death was said to be multiple blunt force trauma, which was consistent with a manner of falling to her death, basically. And her death from that was ruled accidental. That was made public on the 6th of February 2019. It was said that, you know, there was no evidence that any foul play had been involved. But like I said, they didn't even look into that in the first place. And there's something really strange here. Apparently when they're doing autopsies, they take pictures of the process and of the body. With Tam's, they didn't. And I think that it is like a requirement to do so, and they just didn't do it. Just didn't do it. So people obviously have their opinions on that and think that maybe the police just wanted to get this case closed quickly. Of course, I'm not saying anything. I'm not putting the blame on anyone or the judgment on anyone here. I'm just going with what is out there and what people are thinking because of how this case was handled. A lot of people do not think that she fell over that balcony and fell to her death face first, as the body positioning would have assumed, because, I mean, surely she would have had massive severe injuries to, at the very least, the front of her face, a broken nose, minimum. She didn't have anything like that. Her face was fine. If you are falling off that balcony, head face first, I'm sorry, but there's going to be very severe injuries in sort of your facial region, you know, even like a cracked skull or something, but there was just nothing like that. Despite that, and despite, you know, everyone's thoughts on it and whatnot, the police closed the case because the autopsy was saying that it was accidental, and they accepted that. There was also a massive thing. I watched a video of Lee having an interview with somebody, and he said that when he went to go and see his wife after she had obviously been in the funeral home, so it was like a viewing because he was going to have an open casket, I believe. When he went in, so they put makeup on you to try and cover things up. They do that. But when he went in, it was like somebody had put, as he described it, sort of black shoe polish all over her face. It didn't even look like her, which he told them to get that off, and they said, you know, we've got to try and cover up all these bruising and stuff like that, which you can surely do without making her look like she's got shoe polish all over her face. It is very disrespectful, and he was really not happy about that, understandably. Now let me just quickly go back to these cameras. So remember I mentioned that they had cameras inside the house. They had these sensors on the doors, which is amazing. However, the cameras, and even in the phone call, I think it might have been Jose, said that, you know, my girlfriend's got cameras in the house, we could probably overlook in the balcony, we could probably look at them. So he actually mentioned that. And then, you know, they had all run out of battery. Not one of the cameras worked because they had no battery in them. John stated that this was because they were rechargeable. She'd not really taken much care of them since, you know, things with her and her ex were better, and he wasn't coming around the house all the time, which is the reason she got them. And, you know, after that she felt secure and didn't feel the need to keep charging them. Which is really frustrating because she literally had cameras in that house and just that footage would have been like the best thing ever for this case, and we didn't have it because they didn't have battery. There's also something really strange as well here, that basically the last instance of that door opening, how I said it's got the markings of when it's open and closed, right? So the last recorded sort of message that was sent to her phone was of the door opening and nobody closing it behind them, which is strange because then what? So Tam went outside for some reason, I don't know, to have a fag, but then she ended up having it on the balcony and then fell off the balcony. And if she went outside and opened that door and then came back in, why did she not close the door again? Because it was just left open. It's really, really weird. Very weird. During some of the interviews, Jean was very, let's just say, seemingly didn't really care about Tam being dead, one of her friends, at least. She's offering the police donuts. She's going out buying them vouchers for donuts and then says, oh, I shouldn't be doing that because the case isn't closed yet. She is going on saying, you know, are we done here? Because I've got to get ready for this funeral. Like, just so, how she says it's so blasé and so uncaring. Not like my friend's funeral or Tam's funeral. Nothing. Or even her funeral. It was this funeral. That funeral, I think. It was just, I don't know, weird. This whole thing's weird. Now, also something very strange in this case, Jose, who was, like I said, he was like a pre-probation officer, he was actually fired after they found him looking into how much the information they had on Tam's case. Why? Why did he feel the need to look into that? Why did he need to know what they had and what they didn't have? Beats me, he was fired for that. There was also something to do with another copper involved in the case who was deemed as racist, and he actually retired. And then there's also another 2 coppers who have been known for racism too, who are also all involved in this case. So a lot of people think that that's potentially a big factor in this one. In 2020, when, well, sort of 2019, 2020, when all the Black Lives Matter, you know, and all of that campaign was all over the TV and went massive and all celebrities were out, Tam's case came back up, and in June of 2020 they reopened it for investigation. But they basically said that there was no evidence to indicate any foul play had ever taken place, and basically that was that. The family got an attorney themselves and who looked into everything and basically said, picked up on the matters that, you know, I have. The lack of autopsy photos, that all the evidence there was mishandled because they were just assuming it was this accident straight away. There was conflicting witness statements, there was sort of crime scene tampering. It was just a mess, and even though all these things were brought up, still nothing has happened, nothing has changed. Her death has still been ruled as an accident. That is all the information we have at the moment. I would love to know what your thoughts are on it. Do you think that Tam just did tragically fall off that balcony and die as a result of that? Or do you think that there was something more sinister involved? Please let me know. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway, that's all I have today on the case of Tamla Horsford. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.